Um, I just did the second of two like sessions. It's funny, anyway, I just got a text message that's related to this, actually, in a funny way. So anyway, what was I saying? That's weird. Okay, so 2 days ago, I had a session of this new strain that I already mentioned. It's like Albino Blue Vuitton or something like that. And it was okay. I don't think I really had like a very high dose. It was very much a microdose, which is fine. It was kind of like what I anticipated. It was pretty mellow and like I'm trying to think about like the specifics of it. It wasn't really very visual or like auditory. It was much more internal and like less, even internally it was less pronounced and more of like a feeling. So it's hard to come up with like specific concepts that were going on. But I remember feeling like some anxiety. So like I've been working through a lot of like internal anxiety. I'm gonna combine these two trips because like I just did another one that was a little bit more in dose, but not very much more. I'm just coming out of it right now. The themes have been interesting. The themes have been anxiety. Like, why am I so goofy? Like looking at me like I need a haircut. I cut my own hair, and I'm like, it's almost time. I'm like keep looking at my hair. I'm like, I probably should have done cut my hair before going on camera, but I don't really care that much right now. So the anxiety was super interesting because like when I actually like basically I think the anxiety is always like doom, which is like, so there's two types of like really serious anxiety I would describe that I've felt before. I'm talking about types. I'm not talking about amount. So I basically had a small amount of these two types. So there's doom anxiety and death anxiety. So death anxiety is about like fear of dying, which is actually pretty minimal, weirdly enough, for me. Like I don't really like pain and stuff, but I, of course, was raised religious, so doom anxiety is a little bit more relevant because doom goes beyond the afterlife or beyond life, and it like makes you preoccupied with like afterlife or things like this. More so like just continuing circumstances that are unpleasant. They could be painful or emotional, like physically painful or emotionally like adverse, very adverse. Like situations where you really would rather avoid, such as emotionally, such as like isolation or betrayal. I've been working through a lot of feeling betrayed by people, and also just meeting people, like trying to realize that people are where they're at, but oftentimes where people are at is destructive and it'll hurt the people around them, not just themselves. And so just thinking like, sometimes I'll get text messages. I don't always turn off my phone, but I'm starting to think about doing it for certain situations, like especially if I take higher dose, it might be better to be more in a meditation state of mind, because generally I see a lot of like good content on my social media feed. I curate a pretty careful feed these days, but there's a lot of things that are just awful that pop up, particularly with what's going on in the world and like a lot of bad behavior people are doing. So I kind of think some of this anxiety is internalizing the bad behavior of other people, feeling so far away from it, but also it's being brought to my attention, of course, by social media. I can't like holding the phone really close to me. I'm sorry. It's like a microphone. Blah 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 blah. Uh, yeah, so I would say like the most interesting transition that really happens when anxiety comes up is like I hit a point where I'm like, this is mine, isn't it? Like, or not mine, but like there's this feeling of ownership, like this is my brain and like I could do something else with this. And so like I kind of either use Zen or hard redirection. So like a hard redirection would be like, which has worked because lately it's worked because I've been on like really like more like microdose to small dose levels of the Albino Blue Vuitton. And like it's just a lot more suggestible at lower doses. Your mind, like it's, and man, it gets really beautiful. Like when if you take a small dose and then you close your mind, because you get the best, I don't want to say the best of both worlds, but in a way, like I'm kind of going off topic now, but I'm remembering some of the most beautiful things I'm seeing right now. I'm almost seeing them right now, which is crazy. But like I saw this rainbow serpent really weirdly. It was like more like a flying snake, maybe like a coatl, kind of like a feathered snake. But as it would fly, it would change color. So it wasn't like well, it kind of had an iridescent sheen to its texture, its feathers, meaning like it changed color a little bit as it just like just based on the orientation of the feathers. I guess like a rainbow obsidian. Google that if you haven't seen it. It's really pretty. Or even there's other types of stuff like labradorite, and there's a couple of rocks out there that kind of capture it. But that was not the end of it. It was like it had those intrinsic characteristics, but as it was flying, it was leaving behind this trail of like color that would change, like that would cycle through the rainbow sort of, and it was just very weird. My first thought was like a tracer, but it wasn't. It was sort of like there were also tracers happening, and it wasn't really a tracer. It was more gradual, more continuous. It was very fluid. So like tracers traditionally are described as like kind of like a stuttering effect in the vision, and this was very fluid, continuous transition of color through, I guess, like the full rainbow or whatever. That was super interesting, and there is a lot of like there was stuff in the background out of focus, I guess, like in the environment. So yeah, but how did we even get there? So like from anxiety. So like when the anxiety came up and I was just like, I want to redirect this, I guess I was thinking like, I want to go anywhere but this. And the mushrooms were like, oh, okay. And like they cooperated really, really easily. Actually, like it was not a very, like I was worried. Like you get the sensation like I'm stuck here. It's never gonna change. Like it's never gonna, like it's always gonna be this way. And then like with the tiniest tap, it just like shifts into a totally different thing. And like that's weird. That's a weird thing. That you like that almost creates a little of like neither doom nor death anxiety. It's almost like a destabilization anxiety of like, why is everything so not stable? Which is just like, and so yeah, I just like going through these levels in my psyche. Like there's the doom level, then there's the death level, then there's the destabilization level, and then you start getting up. Basically, we're moving up into like better feelings, in my opinion. Like we're getting less like terrified into, we're going from very terrified to less terrified, kind of climbing this ladder, like I guess. But there's like levels, and like, but the levels are moving slowly, but you're moving through them and they're moving differently. So like in a way, like the levels are moving side to side and maybe at an angle, and you're moving like you're climbing it like a ladder. It's so weird. It's like, and it's hard to remember because it's like, whoa, this is like this was like 3 or 4 hours, and it's like there's all these things like going on, and it's so hard to say. Like I want to, like in hindsight, now that I'm talking about it, it's like, well, if I just recorded it at the time, I could talk through it, but I don't think that would have even been possible, just because it's like, you need to have your eyes closed, like, because it's a smaller dose, you need to have your eyes closed to see that stuff, and like, kind of there's even another level of anxiety just with, and this is very, very, very mild in comparison, but like looking in the camera, talking to people, and looking at yourself in the reflection. I mean, I used to have a lot more anxiety of this because when I felt like I was really, really ugly. Like, I was even told by people actually that I was ugly one. Like, I wouldn't say once. I meant like at a once upon a time, or like at a time in my life where I just was not consuming healthy food and stuff, and like, so of course, like, or really, like, I was just down too. It wasn't just merely my appearance. Sorry, I'm like my ears are like all over the place. It's distracting. I need to stop being distracted. But yeah, there's like like, I don't know, a combination of things that I believe made me ugly, which I'm still working through. I think that I will talk about the last level of this, but like the very first level is like a physical ugliness. Like that was the very first thing that I struggled with in life, and it caused a lot of like rejection from peers. Like I was like very much relegated to what some people would say. Now I hate this type of this like comparison, but this is a lot of what people would talk about in school. So I guess if this is what this might resonate more with people. It doesn't resonate with me. I'm very much in my internal world, but like in the social world, like the external world, it was about popularity. So I was in the least popular group, and then oftentimes I was being like kicked in and out of this like least popular group. I think a lot of it had to do more with like my appearance just being really, really unappealing, but like I did have appealing characteristics as well. Like there are times where I was like not a great friend, but generally I was like a pretty non-confrontational and supportive friend, where like people could often confide in things in me or tell me things, and like I would not go around like talking to people about it or anything. I was just like very much of a listener, and I actually do provide advice and stuff. And I don't know, when even before that, we can even go, that's very much like super ego. Like when we're going down even further into early childhood, it's more id. And so like I wasn't even like giving or receiving advice all the time, although I did have a friend where like I helped him read once because he was struggling during like a group reading. He was like stuck on a page, and so like, this sounds so funny. It was because it was a performance in front of like everyone in the class and all of our parents, and he was stuck. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want that to happen to me. I'm like, what would I do if that happened to me? And so I crawled behind a plant, and I was whispering like when he would get stuck, I would help him like get through that. And so anyway, like that was kind of like the best part of me, I guess. Like I feel like the worst part of me oftentimes was more like a person who was curious to see what would happen regardless of the consequences, and like how it would hurt others, which is a very common thing with children, I guess you could say. It's like, because when you don't know what the outcome of your actions or your choices are yet, like you're still learning those things, you can be prone to like, you know, it's easy to have somebody else do that and watch what they're going through. And so like, I don't even really have a concrete example of this, but I just like kind of being a passive observer in life, and feeling like the one on the outside looking in, watching people go through things and maybe not really stepping in for silly reasons like, oh, they're popular, or they were mean to me once, or stupid things. And like, this is a problem now. Like the older I get, the less empathy I have for others, and it just gets worse and worse. And so it's been a theme with the mushrooms. It's like facing anxiety, really intense anxiety, and also facing like connection, like fear of connection. And really that is like more so than like lacking in empathy. It's more like missing empathy. It's like there's actually tremendous amount of empathy. The problem isn't so much trying to teach one how to do that. It's actually a pretty simple thing, like golden rule: teach others how you want to be, treat others how you want to be treated, or put yourself in someone else's shoes. Like it's really, 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 really simple actually, but it all is technically it's not the most simple, because it is predicated on a connection. Like there has to be a effort, a connection, period. That's the simplest level that it is all based on. And not really, when you are kind of bullied or something, you find that connection to be pretty like that becomes a really big mountain to climb, because you think like, okay, I have to overextend myself because other people won't reach in as far to make like the emotional connection mostly. And even sometimes if you do make that, overextend yourself and make that effort, or even if you just make that effort and kind of, there's a very real possibility it's going to be like in vain, like it'll be turned back on you. Like that's something that I think I noticed, like trying to go and sit with people at like certain tables. There would be conversations in school that just really shut this down for me, where I was like, okay, I'm not, like, it's very, very obvious that I'm not supposed to be sitting here at this table, but no one's like saying, you need to get up and go away. It's like, we don't have to look at you. Like, we don't want you to be here. Like, yeah, anyway, I don't know. So anyway, going through that physical and like going through like having that physical ugliness, and then going through some of those social interactions, it created like an emotional ugliness as well. So it started being like really lacking the ability to see that people like that as the same as me. Like I felt that they didn't have feelings, and I felt like, I could never see them going through the things that I was going through that were leading me to have really strong emotions, powerful emotions. It would be like crying. I guess it could be some anger, although anger is very repressed in my childhood. And so kind of like, yeah, it's a very trapped experience. I'm starting to become very clear to me why I was a child cutter, like a child self-harmer, because I really had I was trapped in a really tiny class of people who really made life, like they did not really care. It's almost like they had no idea what it was like to go through any emotions or anything really serious. And so it was, that was like my interpretation of them. That became my like views in a way. Like, these are hardly real. Like, these people aren't as real as like my parents, who will extend me a little bit more empathy, or people who have to like live with me, like, so like my friend group, that wasn't even really something where I would have a lot of emotional conversations or anything. It was more like a refuge in this place, where people, and we were really smart. Like, there wasn't anybody in the loser group that like got C's or B's. Like, we were all A students actually, and became the nerds later. But like, I don't really know if we resonated with each other either. It was like just this refuge kind of in this place where other people were like the main people, were like, the stars of the show, and we were like the background characters, I guess. It was stupid. Like, it was a really sad kind of fate, if you will. And so that kind of came up a little bit, because my transition out of, like, I don't know, really, I went through a period of time, like, especially in college, but it started in high school, where it actually started where I was going through big issues with food. So for reasons I won't fully discuss, like, I just have some food allergies and issues with food, and it was actually probably creating more anxiety, like on a biomechanical level. Like, it was producing anxiety provoking either hormones or just the biogenic amines, like norepinephrine, the presence or lack thereof of serotonin and dopamine. And it was a balance too. It wasn't like, oh, there's just too much. I was overweight, but it was almost like overweight, undernourished, and having a lot of the really, like, the downsides of being overweight is just bad on your body. You're kind of carrying around, you're carrying around the gym. Everywhere you're going is weightlifting because you have all this extra weight on you that you don't need. So there's that component. And then the undernourishment component was really obvious in terms of like some severe kind of psychotic features of just like basically I could tell that like my nervous system wasn't getting what it needed. There were focal aware seizures that I was having in my temporal lobe that were causing me to have really long, minutes, hours, and days long deja vus, or feeling like time wasn't working properly, and that apparently that's where the name temporal lobe comes from, because that's its main job. There are other components to this that weren't merely my sense of time, but that was predominantly what it was. It felt like there was like that component. So there's the component of feeling like time is moving in a really strange way, like time is not working properly. And then that was like the main symptom, the predominant symptom. But then there was another symptom of like underlying anxiety or reaction to this. I guess what I didn't know at the time was like that was kind of a separate, or potentially separate, like that was a reaction that I was making bigger. And so the more I would dwell on it, the more I would focus on it, I would be more and more convinced that something was wrong. And this actually ended up becoming like a very anxious episode, a very panic attack episode. And a couple times in my life, I started having severe panic attacks. It wasn't a regular thing. It was more like during stressful times I would have them. So, like once I had a couple in college. They were strategies that I already even had to deal with these, but like nobody's perfect, and so I wasn't always doing my best. Like I have a yoga practice that I've had for more than half of my life now at this point, which is kind of cool. But it wasn't always working for like this type of symptomology. Like it definitely helped. I don't think I would have had nearly, let's put it this way, I would have had a lot more panic attacks if I had not had my like yoga practice, and potentially even using cannabis helped me calm down a little bit. But that was like, in a way, I think it was a form of like internal ugliness, and that sounds harsh, but what it was is actually attachment. So I was really, really convinced of certain things, that like bad things that were happening, or like deficiencies inside of myself. I was so convinced of something. Like I was like now when I'm going through these thoughts, I'm like, I can like tap it and I'm like going like off into another place. Like it's easy. But at that time, and when you're a child, you kind of get convinced that you're stuck in a situation, because you are. Like as a kid, you're stuck. And so the main thing that our current society teaches us about parenting, or the main thing that our current society teaches us in terms of parenting and child relationships, is that, and the way that we parent, being like siloed, like a little cell, as opposed to like having more of a community focus. It teaches your child that the friend groups that they're in and the parents that they're with are of course, like they can't escape those situations, and so they develop other convictions inside their mind that things will always be the way they are and that they get stuck. And I think this is actually the root of like suicide and stuff. Like, I mean, I went through situations where the online bullying became really, really bad, and I was just iced out of every single group, and a lot of this is my way of relating, but I've been so like used to being exiled, that like I would go and looking for trouble everywhere I'd go to make sure that there was a reason that I was being exiled and that it wasn't an identity thing. So like, because I felt that if it were an identity thing, then it would always be this way because there's nothing you can change. There's no way to really change that. So that was my stupid idea of like how to deal with this. And so like I wound up in like darker and darker corners of the internet where people were just really, really encouraging bad behavior, harmful behavior. And like I to this day can't really get some of this out of my mind. I almost forgot about this, but whoa, yeah, there were things said that I didn't realize really changed things for me. Whoa, okay. Interesting. So, well, I just saw a lot of like racist, super racist, like violent imagery. I don't know why I would even put myself in those environments. Curiosity, or maybe I think I stumble into some of these, and yeah, just being told, just I don't even feel like I really need to. I don't even feel like I really need to go into this. Well, I will, fine. So, just horrific images, like the main stuff. It almost felt targeted at me, and maybe it was, but like, you know, I'd like stumble upon forums, message boards. See, I really loved. Okay, let's start why I was on the internet. Like, I really liked role play, and like I really like stories, like writing stories. So when I was in second grade, I was convinced I was going to be an author, and like I really wanted to write stories. And so I would like go on the internet whenever whenever it was humanly possible. And this wasn't like on your phones. This is like 90s, early 2000s. So most of this and late, well, it was just 2000s, yeah. So a lot of this was just like on my old PC, where like older family PC, like one of those like big boxy things. Anyway, like one of those big boxy desktop looking things. And like a 98, was that Windows 98 is coming to me for some reason. Is that even right? Anyway, that's so a long time ago. That's not it. That was the first one. I think that was the first computer actually, but that wasn't it. That's a little bit distracting. I apologize. So, going onto these forums and message boards, they're really cool places. One is still around. It's called the Santharian Dream, and this was the nicest place like the nicest community I found on the internet, and it was still incredibly like strict and very like, which is good. Like now, like initially, I felt really, really frustrated by this as a kid because like basically this was for adults. It was like an adult. There really was no explicit or gratuitous content, but it was this whole world created by Artemidor, something like that. I don't know. Is that an actual name or a made up name? It sounds European. The Santharian Dream. I would go there and like just pour over the database, like all of the different, like it is go there and look at it. It is a world unto itself, and like it's a very rich it's a very rich world building place website. So it was kind of like that. Like I would find really magical, interesting places like this, and it might have even lured me a little bit into a false sense of like quality and security. So like this website did a lot to like keep people out of role playing, but for a very good reason, because like you get all kinds of crazy nonsense on the internet. So basically you had to jump through a bunch of hoops. You had to get like validated from you'd have to get like validated, and then sorry once you were like you would actually have to write like how to role play in a character, and the character would have to get for every single, it was an application to join every single role play that would be approved by like one or more moderators. And sometimes it's kind of like an TTRPG, I guess, in some instances where sometimes this would already be games in progress. So you just had to be really sure that you were like compatible and like joining into the correct story and in the correct way. Cause like, yeah, like, I don't know, they were booting people. I remember they would not even let certain people post unless they had been there, they had a certain level of account. It was one of those things. So anyway, wandering around the internet, especially younger, I would see a lot of like really awful forums about like just like anger. People go on to these websites and they just let all their anger out. And some of this anger, it was like not even related to they weren't relating necessarily to things that they had gone through, but they would just pick a target or pick an identity and they'd like try to beat up on that scapegoat. And so like I'd see a lot of like they're just straight up neo-Nazi forums, and I didn't know that. Like and they weren't even really advertised as such. Like in the early days of the internet, it was kind of all neo-Nazi, which I was never warned about. And why would you be? Because like, you know, most of the people who had the internet initially were not, you know, a lot of people of color. So it was just all like that. And you just get hit with really messed up things. If you were to step out of line and say anything that wasn't like in the party line, then they would all try to like, they would immediately know that you were, you know, other, and then they would all kind of dogpile. So that created certain situations that I think shaped a really unrealistic view of the world, actually, which I didn't really realize that was the way it was. But yeah, like it made people seem like basically all you were seeing was like people's deepest like hatreds and rages and dark emotions that they just didn't want to feel internally, so they had externalized it all. And I started thinking that was normal, and it's really not normal. And I still externalize, and so I'm working on this internal. We're talking about beauty in the beginning. It's about more than just symmetry, but there's a component of symmetry in there, because a lot of this ugliness, as people are saying on the internet, is displaced feelings and emotions that are therefore exaggerated. So what you have is like one side of the picture, which is a really tiny small little thing, and then on the other side of the picture it's like this blown up thing, and there's an asymmetry to that makes it ugly. But I don't know, there's something else to beauty. There's like a component of color, there's a component of variety that's important. So also I feel like you can see like it's kind of like a very like monotone and checkerboard kind of like painting, and you can find beauty or value in or artistic validity maybe in something like this. But it's almost beautiful, not in spite of diversity, but because of diversity. Like it's reliant. Whereas like if you have more perspective, you're going to be able to appeal, and you're going to be able to balance. And a lot of that symmetry is about balance, and it's also about novelty. So a lot of people have described, and some of the weird things I've noticed on the internet about like the fractals that people have been able to see on psychedelics, mine tend to be a little different. People are saying like, you know, there's a lot of like symmetrical fractals, and this is true. There are those fractals, but it really isn't. It often isn't that simple either. There can be like with Mandelbrot, there is a symmetry inside the, You know, like if you look at a spiral, like a Mandelbrot spiral, like one side of the spiral is larger and it goes down into like a smaller part. And so you have to, like, that's how you go further, or you can zoom out and you can see more. Like, but that intrinsic asymmetry is also part of not just the beauty of the essential, like it's essential. It's an essential mathematical component. I don't know, I feel like I got a little bit off topic here, but I don't know, just when you're talking about, like, so emotionally, I think absorbing a lot of projection and a lot of negative emotions that really has no desire to be transmuted, changed, or worked through is really unhealthy. It almost can just imprint right onto you, and you may not, you will, most of the time you won't even notice it, because well, you are dealing with invisible things. Emotions are invisible things that become visible later, like almost well down the line of what's happening physiologically and physically. And so, like, it is really fascinating to realize that so much of what you thought you were is actually other people, like fragments of other people. And it's so weird. It is the weirdest thing. It is like, then who am I? Then what am I? Then, and so, I don't know, it's been an interesting thing because I'm always been really on this artistic journey of, like, I guess it's a communication journey in some sense. It's not even about, always about making these authored experiences or like painting the prettiest thing I can paint. Oftentimes it's just about like making a corporate video for somebody so they can communicate something to somebody else. And that communication and connection is sacred, and it wasn't held sacred on the early internet. The early internet was full of really, really nasty archetypes. It's born from a lot of very emotional men who would go on and they would feel like the internet was a way that they could be empowered, and it is actually very empowering. It empowers a lot broader range of people now, but that's not really where it came from. It came from an area, it came from a time where like men who felt were pretty inferior would express that without really working through any of it. And I think that is like where we're at in a way. I would say that's kind of where our society is at in America. I can't really say this is the case for Europe because I don't know as much about Europe. I've been to Europe once and I have a friend or two from Europe, like, but I don't live there. I haven't really absorbed like a lot of the European culture very much, so I can't quite say that that's true or not true, that it's the same way as it is here. But a lot of like the main thing I'm realizing is a lot of men just haven't worked through anything internally. They want to hammer it out externally, and that's not where it is. That's not where the work is. So they end up doing things physically and moving shit around physically, and it doesn't do anything at all, because what they really were struggling with was invisible things that were never physical. They were always it sounds weird to say that things are frequency and energy, because those are really usually reserved for things like the vibration of matter or the frequency of light and sound waves and stuff. But if there is so much, like if there's vibration to so many different things, maybe light and sound are actually components of vibration. It's not that vibration is a component of light and sound. That sounds really crazy to say. That seems backwards from what I was taught. What little STEM I've had, because I am an art student primarily, but being in film school, we are taught like about the science of, which it was one of my these are my favorite classes actually in film school, but we were taught about exactly what light and sound are on like a scientific level. And like, I don't know, they don't necessarily go into like things like the universe or like where does a lot of this energy originate from, or where does all this energy come from? It mostly just talks about energy as it is and where it is now currently, and like what we would be able to do with it, measure it, and how we would be able to like and by measure I mean like putting it on a frequency response, like so looking at an equalizer and finding out where sound is like at its peak in terms of frequency. So like, of course, lower frequency being bass, higher frequency being trebles and stuff. But yeah, I've always been kind of, well, I haven't always been, but lately, especially after college, I was like very much more of a skeptic. I couldn't keep listening to this shit. Like, I was just like, I really don't like the contradiction, the constant contradiction of, you know, just like talking about God is love and punishment, and how really blatantly contradictory a lot of the Old Testament and New Testament was, which maybe isn't the fault of religion so much as well, it is really, it is religion's fault, but it's like a byproduct more of writers who came way after, an editor, they're like not writers, but editors who came way after the original writers, tweaking a little bit more, changing a little bit more here and there, especially so it would be updated and fit with their time. Yet so many people in our culture say, you can't do that now, you can't tweak or update things to fit now. And we're talking Orthodox. So when you look at a lot of the newer religions, like New Age spirituality, or younger religions like Scientology maybe, or younger Christian denominations, there may be this breaking of that, like hypocrisy a little bit, where it's like oftentimes they would imply that like the spiritual text was perfect the way it was, and that it can be edited even though it had been edited. Whereas now people are like, edit it. I mean, it's not, whether it is or isn't edited isn't important. What is important is the emotional significance. So there's been a really big shift in religion since then, but I think the early internet kind of had this weirdly an orthodoxy. It's like an ethnic orthodoxy, this unspoken ethnic orthodoxy, this bro code culture amongst just like greaseball men mostly, who like really just they had great things in terms of like their intellect, but they wouldn't put their best foot forward. They'd put all this negative baggage forward instead, and so I don't know, it actually really harmed children, especially more children like me, I guess, who were like growing up in a predominantly, like, you could even say, I was about to say neo-Nazi, it's not really like that, but like a predominantly white paradigm, but weren't treated that way all the time, most of the time, some of the time, with varying degrees of inclusion and exclusion. It was a lot worse when I was younger than as I became older, and I don't really know the whole reasoning behind this. I don't know if it was because, I feel like it was a combination of things. Like, I was getting more mature, or maybe a level of personal power was increasing in me, but also I felt like the external society was getting more kind in certain ways. Like, they weren't totally what people would call woke, but there was like a teeny tiny little bit of it where they were starting to be less harsh against people who might be there, who weren't from their group. And like a lot of times we would just sit there and listen anyway. Like, we weren't jumping in the middle to be the star of the show like a lot of these other people would, like really like kind of Leo. And we were never, not only were we not given that opportunity, we weren't seeking it. We were mostly there to like be a part of it, you know? Like, we just wanted to be a part of it. We don't want to be, we'd rather be adjacent but not included than just like totally disembodied and by ourselves. I say we because I'm, you know, like the internet, you eventually run into people like you, like, and yeah, like they talk about the internet having silos, like, or small bubble communities. So you eventually, it became way more like that. So it started out more as like one big bubble community. I don't know if it ever really was, but it was less, there was less little tiny bubbles and more like one main big thing with, of course there were always like forums and stuff. So that's not really really true. But it seems like there has been a shift in making things a little bit more like encapsulated. So this ended up being a really long talk. I feel like I've really moved really far away from what exactly happened on my trip, but to be quite honest, I was watching a lot of like I was actually watching Tarotverse videos for this last trip a little bit, feeling kind of like needing a little direction, wanting to see just like pretty pictures and stuff, and then like closing my eyes, going in and out of some deeper thoughts and stuff, and like feeling guilty. Part of this like emotional ugliness or whatever that I've been working on is like being not nice. Like there's times I just have internalized this violence, this genocide, this exclusion and exile, this racism, this laziness, this lack of self-reflection and this projecting tendency, gaslighting tendency, externalizing, a lot of blaming, especially victim blaming, like really taking no accountability. And I don't really do a lot of those things because I hate that, and I've had it done to me, and I know that it just it's like not a way to make friends. You were not gonna make any friends that way, but it's almost hard not to have a little bit of nastiness going through life and picking up other people's stuff. And I've decided that I'm going to be really strict with myself and careful, and I'm gonna try and like nip it in the bud earlier and apologize quicker, and also put up with less from others. Like it doesn't mean I have to get into a fight with people. It does mean that I do need to walk away really quickly. I need to walk away way sooner. And again, like it's so much easier to say that. Like it feels like that. It feels like it's really easy to say that and really hard to do that, and it is. Like imagine telling people in Gaza, well, you shouldn't be there still. You should just walk away. Well, no, they're effing trapped. They're effing trapped. Okay, and like, you know, I just met somebody. Never mind. I shouldn't talk about this. Well, maybe I will. You know, I'm a vegan. I just met somebody who threw themselves at me. They were kissing on me like within a minute of meeting them, and they work with animals. They are not vegan. They smoke a lot of cigarettes and they drink all the time, which I will go out for a drink just to connect with the community, but I will never drink at home. I don't like ever get more than one. I try to never drink more than 1 or 2 drinks in a week because I think it's bad for you. And this person, like, I had a weird feeling about them from the beginning, and it's getting worse, honestly. Like, because they have been sending me these pictures of them. They take care of horses. They ride horses a lot, and they keep sending me pictures of them with this horse locked behind bars. Like, it's like, well, I know that they're in a barn and the horse is in a pen, I hate that for us. Like, I hate that for us. That horse that's not normal. Like, you know, I have a roommate, and like they have cats, and like one of their cats is inside for 23 hours and 50 minutes of the day, and he takes the cat out for 10 fucking minutes, and it just drives me insane. Like, it drives me insane. Like, you should not have you should not have pets. And you should not be training horses. Like, go fuck yourself. Who the fuck do you think you are? I'm sorry. Like, you want to be put in a cage for your entire life? You want that? It can be arranged. That can be arranged. And these people think they're the most powerful people on the planet. They really do. Like, a lot of these people have egos that know no limits. And a lot of them have even taken, I feel like they've taken things, like this guy told me he's taken mushrooms. It's like, what did you get from it? Because I would not be able to look at that horse the way that you look at that horse. Like, that doesn't, like, you, I know that that's so judgmental. But no, it's actually judgmental to put a fucking cute creature in a cage. That's pretty judgmental. You think you get to fucking decide that, sorry, I'm swearing a lot now. Let's tone that down and not say any more swear words. So I don't have to bleep them all, but that's really the only reason, because you think that you are gonna call vegans and you're gonna say that vegans are on their high horse, which is not something most vegans don't really climb up on top of animals to exploit them, but you know, okay. So how many judgments does it take for you to decide that a creature shouldn't have their freedom, that the best place for them to belong is in a cage, and that their only good and their only purpose is for you to somehow exploit or extract wealth from them? I think you've got another thing coming. Like, you have another thing coming. You really do. You have no idea what's coming, because it is self-inflicted in a way that, like, you will not admit. You won't admit to yourself that what's coming is self-inflicted, but it is justice will come through others. It will come through other people who put an end to your behavior. But I want you to know that it is 100% self-inflicted. Like, if you're harming others and people stop you, that is self-inflicted. So it's justice. It's called justice. And like, vegans are on their high horse. Why are you so entitled to slavery? Why do you feel so entitled to slavery of whatever speciesist construct you're entertaining? You think that that's just, the thing is, you won't actually discuss the injustice of the system. You won't actually fight capitalism itself directly. You'll bend over and you will capitulate to it, to the market and to capitalism, as long as you can feel strong in one other area. Like, you will sacrifice, in a way, your soul, a piece of your authentic self, in order to take that away from another creature. Like, that's what you've settled for, is that tiny little feeling of power. And I'm kind of not feeling like I'm putting up with that anymore. I'm really not putting up with that anymore. I'm honestly, for the first time, I actually feel like my anger is really justified. And I won't be, bullied out of my position on this one. I've definitely had my mind changed before, because I was not raised vegan. Making me capable of changing, making me capable of evolving. So I know that I'm not so attached to my ego that I can't make a change. But what about you? What about you? What have you changed in order to be a better person? Have you stopped driving your car to reduce pollution? Do you actually recycle? I don't know how this turned into such an externalizing thing, but I have a feeling that people in this video, I have followers, kind of like stalkers online, that I'm sure if I ever post this will wanting to be lapping up this video like a little puppy, trying to drink up the tears and the frustration from other people, from me, because they don't then have to think about their own mental state and what they're actually doing to others and other creatures, not just people. But yeah, I honestly, like, you're not what this video is for. This video is my journal. Like, this video is about the things that I've been grappling with and working on, and trying to make sense out of in a very unkind and hospitable world. And I feel guilty for like just saying mean little things here and there. Meanwhile, I haven't put my hands on anybody. I haven't harmed any animals. You know, I don't go out of my way to make people's day worse. I don't put my trash, you know, I don't like leave the trash in the trash receptacle for 2 to 3 weeks waiting for someone else to move it. I don't leave my dishes in the sink for days upon days and make sure it's stinky and full of meat products so that somebody else not only has to deal with it but has to deal with as gross as it can possibly be. You know, I have a lot of people in my life who will tell me, oh, you should have done this, you should have told me this, you should. And it's like, no, you should shut the front door. And also, you should listen to me now, actually, instead of listening to yourself, because clearly I will steer you right more than you will steer myself. In fact, I could parent your children, many people, 90% of the society could probably parent your children better than you can, despite the fact that you saying, you know, people of color are no good, da 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 da. LGBTQ people are no good, da 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 da. You know, the fact of the matter is that I am doing what I can to make the planet better for those children, and I'm not even having any. So I've really had it with a lot of you. And like for the people out there who are vegans, and for the people out there who aren't bigots, and the people out there who are doing the right things, thank you. I welcome you. Please stay. For the people out there who aren't vegans, I invite you to keep your mouth shut on this channel. I do. I invite you to keep your mouth shut on this channel, and I invite you to learn and listen. And if you don't keep your mouth shut on this channel, you are not going to be treated equally on this channel. I don't think that people who do not treat other living beings with respect, who treat other beings unequally, are going to be treated equally on this channel. This is a channel of justice, and that's a scale. And those scales mean that if you put something on that fucking scale, it's gonna go up and down because it's a machine. It isn't some kind of life form that's been raised and conditioned to cater on your every needs or to coddle your feelings. That's not what it is. That's not what this channel is. I love how crazy my hair is. I'm definitely gonna go and get a haircut right after this. But I'm tired of being so self-critical, and I'm tired of constantly criticizing myself for things that like don't matter while everyone else are like out there are doing really reckless things, impulsive things. Some people out there are committing some heinous crimes. I was traveling through Portland on my bike, and 2 people almost hit me. One person was in a car and one person was on a bike, and both of them yelled at me. And I literally warned one of them. I was like, "Hi, I'm hello, I'm right here. Hi." And they're like, "Whoa!" And they like, it took them like until the last second. First of all, don't ride your bike high. Don't ride your scooter high. Okay, like you need your reaction time. It's important, especially on a path like the 205 bike path where there's lots of campers on it, lots of people in tents right on the path, people walking their dogs, people doing things. You can't not be looking where you're going on that path, please. Like for so many reasons. Stop telling other people that they are the ones at fault. Just, you don't even need, you can think it, but you don't need to say it. Just keep your mouth shut, be like, oops, okay, move on. You don't even need to say you're sorry. Just don't make your brain worse off than it already is. And don't dig yourself into an even don't dig yourself into an even bigger hole than it already is in, that because of your internal gaslighting, your gaslighting of others, and your projection. You're constantly saying you're not looking where you're going. No, you are not looking where you're going, because I would not have been able to alert you because I saw you coming. I would not have been able to alert you if I had not been paying attention to where I was going. So people, realize this is an IQ test, okay? This is an IQ test, and maybe you don't care about tests, okay? But your survival is contingent upon it, actually. Your safety is contingent upon this. And so I am sorry. I said something to a driver. I'm not going to say what I said. It was really messed up. It would get this video demonetized. Or not even demonetized. It would get it, what is it? Shadow banned. Is that what it is? It would get this video shadow banned. Not that it matters, because this channel isn't monetized. This is a brand new baby channel, and I don't actually give it that much of a shit. This is my personal journal channel. I'll do art on another channel. If you want to support me, I really appreciate that. I would really, really appreciate it, actually. But that's not what this is about anyway. What I'm really trying to say is that my mushroom experience is kind of showing me that there are so many places inside that I'm like letting my mind run amok, my anxieties run amok. And I'm just going to take a little bit more agency in redirecting things toward the direction where they need to go, but I still don't want to control things. I don't want to contaminate things with too much needless mental charge. What I want is to see the way that people are, the way that people will react. I want to see people for who they are and want to be seen as well. Of course, I will probably see this persona that they put out first, and then as time goes on, you see beneath the layers, and you learn a little bit more. And that's why I'm here on this journey. I'm not really here for these petty power struggles and these stupid little conflicts that it's so easy to get sucked into. Like I've taken this fragment of really like negative evil. I want to say evil, but it's like fragmented souls or personalities of people who just couldn't contain their emotional anguish, and they put that out on the internet, and it like attached to me. And like the mushrooms are basically just saying, like, peel that off and see what's there. And like, and not just that, do you want to be like that? Do you want to be should that be your legacy? Should your legacy be projecting on your own feelings of being suicidal onto other people? Projecting your own feelings of being in exile for your entire life, like basically being in isolation, being in jail, like, growing up in a really, really tiny private school and having really like very circumstantial friends or fickle friends that like kind of turn on you, betray you. And it's like only a few of them anyway, and like there's nowhere for anyone to go. Is that really like going to be the energy you want to take forward from this point? Or do you want to have like a garden of different blooming varieties of just like all these different perspectives? That's what I would prefer. I think that's what I came to enjoy. Like, and again, like maybe I'm called to do nourishment. Like I'm a yoga instructor, so I would like to encourage others and nourish them in ways, but like it's just not very sustainable thing to do if you can't find that symmetry, and if you are going to like allow those thought forms or those little like emotional bodies to like attach to you and to change you to be you for a while. It's wrong. It's wrong to treat people that way. It's wrong to like treat animals that way. It's wrong to expect good things for yourself when you really haven't done anything good around you. You haven't done anything very good for the climate, for the environment, for your community. Like you're there to take from it, and you take and you take and you take, and you lie and say that you give and you give and you give. When you don't do that, you don't give. You have very much a negative bank account. You have very much a negative balance when it comes to nature and your health and this planet. And a lot of these animals, like a lot of the species on this planet, like this planet is ready to make a withdrawal on us. Like they really are. This entire planet is about ready to make a withdrawal on us and leave us with nothing. So I just want to let you know, like, the mushrooms are not fucking around.